Welcome to the extratime.com Friday podcast on the eve of All-Ireland final day. I'm Oisin Langan and I'm recording from Dublin's Fair City, and for the first time in 7 years, the boys in blue will not be preparing for the final. The only blue on the Croke Park pitch tomorrow will be that of the Artane band. Instead, we have the mouth-watering clash of Mayo and Tyrone to look forward to, and we'll talk more about that later when we preview the game with BBC co-commentator, analyst and former Derry footballer Conleith Gilligan. On Monday, by the way, we spoke to Mayo's Seamie O'Shea, if you want to check that out, and last Friday we had former Tyrone player Colin Kavanagh. Now Sunday we'll see Croke Park host another All-Ireland final, and ahead of the meeting between Galway and Cork, we get the view of All-Star and Sunday game analyst Elaine Aylward. We'll also hear from Stephen Finn, who shares his thoughts on the Republic of Ireland, as well as tonight's interesting SSE Electricity League Premier Division clash between St. Pat's and Sligo Rovers. To top it all off, we'll have a feel-good Friday chat with the wonderful Walsh family, Olympic bronze medalist Aidan, his talented sister Michaela, who also fought at the Olympics, and their dad Damien. Now, the international women's side yesterday announced a new sponsorship deal with Sky, a landmark development which certainly bodes well for the future. It's a very positive sign that such a premium brand is eager to be associated with women's football in Ireland. And speaking of women and football, this weekend sees a crucial encounter in the SSE Electricity Women's League, with Peamount hosting Shelbourne tomorrow. That one kicking off at 6 p.m. Shells are currently 2 points clear of Peamount at the summit, but with the game more played. Remember, you can watch that one live and free of charge on LOI TV. And look, if you are watching the All-Ireland final and you don't want a split screen, you can always go back and watch it on LOI TV. As I've mentioned, the SSE Electricity League this weekend sees Sligo meet St. Pat's in a big game, while Bows make the trip up the M1 to face Drogheda in the game park. Rory Higgins, Derry City meet Finn Harps. Longford welcome Dundalk to the Midlands, and league leaders Shamrock Rovers hosts what I would refer to as a Renaissance Waterford. Sligo are third, but 11 points behind second place St. Pat's. They have 2 games in hand, so really need to win if they're to have any chance of challenging the top 2 sides. That game is on real live terrestrial television, which is great. Not that there's anything wrong with the LOI TV platform. I'm doing games for it myself and I'm loving it, but there's just nothing better than having your product on terrestrial TV. And look, we've seen it. Ladies football, Dublin against Meath last week in the All-Ireland final. Ladies football has grown for a couple of reasons. One of them, undoubtedly, is the TV exposure that it's got on terrestrial TV through TG Cahir, and full credit and fair play to them. In the first division, by the way, Shelbourne travelled to Cork City in an absolutely huge game. We'll have reaction to all of those matches on Monday's podcast. First though,
Flings in the cross, Egan's up there, it's got in! It's an own goal! It's gone in off the Lenkovic! Bizarre circumstances for Ireland to get their goal, but they'll get it any which way!
It is the extratime.com Friday podcast, and now we're joined by UEFA A-licensed coach and football writer Stephen Finn. You can follow Stephen's work on futsalfin.wordpress.com. Stephen, of course, also part of the Waterford IT research project. Stephen, how are you?
Very good, Oisin.
Good. Listen, we'll talk about the League of Ireland and what's happening tonight in a few minutes. But first of all, I know people want even more Ireland talk. But the thing is with the Republic of Ireland, it is the biggest show in town. I don't think people ever tire of talking about it, regardless of if it's just before a game, just after a game, or if it's that midpoint when there's no game. People are just interested. What have you made of the reaction to not just the 1-1 draw with Serbia, but the week overall, the 3 games overall, and how do you assess the performances overall?
Well, I think firstly, when it comes to the Irish football team, there seems to be no balance or very little balance. People who are balanced are often ignored. So I think, we see a situation where people who would have looked at the manager, and it's almost like the entire fortunes of the team rely solely on the performance of the manager. So if a player misses a target, it's somehow the manager's fault. If a defender makes an individual error, gets attributed to the manager. And quite often, I think, any guy who's ever, or any person who's ever coached a team would have a simple example of a game where they said, "Oh, the opponent does X. We train to prevent X all week, and then the game happens and X happens." So whether it's a set piece or an asset that they have that you've tried hard to neutralize, it still happens. So I think sometimes coaches get too much attention around the results. There's a mythical perspective of what is performance, and it depends on who you ask, I suppose. For me, when I was a kid, I loved all the Jack Charlton stuff, but I did feel that I got to the stage where there has to be a different way of playing football, because Charlton was an incredibly good coach, and he recognised a weakness in international football, and he exploited it for many years. But I remember when we drew 0-0 at Liechtenstein, they had a centre half. I think his name was Daniel Hassler. I stand to be correct on that. And afterwards, he said that all that Liechtenstein had done for weeks ahead of the game was practice defending an aerial bombardment. And funnily enough, we talk about XG. I'm sure the XG for the Irish team that day was probably that we should have won 3 or 4-0, but their goalkeeper made a string of incredible saves. And anyway, Hassler said Ireland were predictable. So if Liechtenstein feel you're predictable, maybe you're predictable. So Charlton actually tried to evolve the team a little bit, went to a 4-5-1. Then his era changed. Mick McCarthy came in, he totally changed the way the team played and was vilified for it, because people didn't want to know, and they didn't want to see. He played 3 at the back at the time. He played Roy Keane at the back once and was crucified over it. Although, funnily enough, it would have been interesting if Roy Keane had finished the last part of his career in that role, because he was such an incredibly good player. But anyway, McCarthy then ended up becoming a lot more pragmatic, and it was because of he hit upon the combination of Robbie Keane and Niall Quinn. And essentially, every Ireland manager since then would love to have an inform Niall Quinn, let alone an inform Robbie Keane. And I always look at the Irish team now, and people, I don't know why, but an awful lot of people didn't particularly warm to Robbie Keane when he was a statistical phenomenon in international football. Like, people always go, he scored against small teams. And then, you look at, Portugal just beat Azerbaijan 1-0 recently. Did Ronaldo score a hat-trick against them? No, he didn't. It's actually hard against... Andorra only lost 2-1 to Hungary the other day. It's hard to score against these minnows. Robbie Keane scored against everybody, not just minnows. And in fact, he scored more goals for Ireland in 4 years under Trapattoni than every other Irish goal scorer ever. So Robbie Keane was phenomenal. And since he's gone, Ireland just don't create as many chances as they did when he was there. And then the second thing happened is our most creative player probably ever, in my experience, is Wes Hoolahan. And 2 years after Robbie went, Wes went. So what we've had since is essentially, no matter who was in charge, the World Cup qualifying campaign, which is Wes's last campaign, and he was badly underused in my view, we're averaging just over 11 chances a game and only 3 of them on target. But we were averaging just over a goal a game. Under Mick, we averaged a bit more. I think it was 12 attempts on goal per game, 3 on target, and less than 1 goes in the net. And then you got to add in that includes Gibraltar. And when you take away Gibraltar, we were averaging very few chances. And I'll touch on XG later on. But essentially, under Stephen Kenny, we've tried to change our style of play, but we're still getting to the stage where we're only getting 3 attempts on target on average a game. This is our key issue. Is this the manager? Possibly, but in my view is that for the young players who are coming through, their challenge is to help us be better getting attempts on goal. And until we do that, we're just going to be getting 1-1 draws with literally everybody.
If we had Big Sam in charge and played Big Sam ball, as I call it, and maybe I'm being very unfair on him there, because the view of Big Sam is, 4-4-2, long ball up to the big man, all that jazz. Would we be getting different results? Would we be getting better results? Would we be talking about still being involved in, or still having a chance of qualifying? Does it matter who's in charge? Would our results kind of be the same? Does it matter what our style is?
Well, I think it does matter what our style is, simply because as I looked it over the period of time...
Sorry, the reason I asked, Stephen, and I'm sorry to cut across you, the reason I ask is because this week a lot of the debate has been, well, you know what, Stephen Kenny, it's fine for you to say you're trying to play better football, but we used to get results and it's all about results.
Yeah, but we used to get results 6 years ago. Like, since 2017, we've beaten Gibraltar twice, we've beaten Georgia once, we've beaten Moldova once. Like, our last good result was an away win over Wales in a match when people talk about being battered. Wales, who didn't have Gareth Bale, should have won the match. So I don't really accept that view. The other thing is, like, I like to, if I'm coaching a group of players, I try and look at what they can do and what their assets are. And, if you have a quick wide player, you might try and use the quick wide player. If you don't have a quick wide player, you're just not going to do that, are you? But I would ask you, who is our big target man? Like, because of the way football has evolved, the players who are going to the UK from Ireland are not that type of player. Like, Aidan O'Brien, who was born in England, is the only tall centre forward of reasonable standing that we have. And to be honest with you, he's a goal poacher. He's not like a fight with centre backs style centre forward. James Collins is another strong guy. I wouldn't want to get in an arm wrestle with him. But if I was a 6'3" and centre back, I wouldn't be overly concerned about James. James likes to get round the back of centre backs and use his intelligence and his bravery. So if we went very, very direct, I'd actually think we'd get worse, simply because I don't think we don't have an Niall Quinn, we don't have a Cascarino, we don't have the level of, we don't have a John Walters, we don't have, and he wasn't even the tallest, he just was an absolute warrior. We don't have that type of player. To me, it would be ludicrous to do that. I actually don't think Sam Allardyce would do that. I think Sam Allardyce would probably try and be pragmatic. The other thing that I find very interesting is the manager has been criticised for playing such young players. There was the comment that no one else in Europe is playing such young players. Yeah, if Jude Bellingham was in our squad, he'd be the youngest player in the squad. Jadon Sancho, Saka. England have shown that if your best players are young, play them. If you look at other countries across, Erling Haaland, nobody was waiting for Erling Haaland to reach 23. Martin Odegaard was playing adult football when he was 15.
I was thinking about this during the week. I was thinking about this during the week. And again, please do correct me if I'm wrong. If he didn't play the young players he played, are there better players who are older? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
Is he picking the best 11? Take age out of it. Is he picking the best 11 that's available to him?
Well, the question is a best 11. Brian Kerr once said that the biggest myth in football was never change a winning team, because what it takes to beat team A doesn't necessarily meet what is required to beat team B. So your next challenge. So what is your best 11? It's kind of a myth, really. What is a best 11? England changed their entire 11 2 matches in a row there. And I'm not just focusing on England. Like, there are games where managers make remarkable decisions, and people go, what a gamble. Like, that chap, whoever it was, played really well last game and now he's not even on the starting lineup. But maybe the manager would have recognised the opponent had a weakness that a different player could exploit. So from my point of view, I don't actually believe that the generation which played in Euro 2016, I don't believe the players who were at their peak then are still at their peak. So I don't think it's unfair, particularly in the attacking area, to look to the next group of players because of their attributes as much as anything else. But if we're also honest, the best three players on the pitch against Serbia, from an Irish perspective, were all born in this century. The goalkeeper, Bazunu, who is like Shay Given level of a teenage goalkeeper. Andrew Omobamidele, who is just remarkably good. He's not just fantastically athletic, he's defensively switched on. I love looking at players, how often they move their head, because that gives me a real indication of, what's their game awareness like. And he's constantly switching, looking over his shoulder to get pictures. He's talking to fellas 6 years older than him, telling them what to do. And then he's asking for the ball under pressure because he's so comfortable. We want people to do that. And that's what every international team wants. And then the next best player for us the other night was Adam Ida. Now, the biggest issue with Adam Ida is he's touching the ball outside the box too much. And I'm not being critical of him, it's just the way the game is going. So if you threw a peak Wes Houlihan into the team with Adam Ida in front, that will be really exciting to watch. So I think our challenge is to get somebody to fill that role. Now, Wes Houlihan was a once-in-a-generation player, but that's as much a challenge for us as possible to go from I think we have a very good defence. We need to be better in midfield, and we have forwards of real potential. But if you add in the next group coming, like the under-21s have Conor Coventry, Gavin Kilkenny, Ryan Johansson, Conor Noss, Will Smallbone, who's recovering from injury. They're all really interesting midfielders. And if they do well, one of them might end up being the link between the midfield and the attack that suddenly gets the best out of these young players. But would anyone honestly have picked 3 different players than Bazunu, Omobamidele or Ida the other day and expect them to be better based on the pool of players that we have?
Just before we move on to League of Ireland, and maybe someday we'll go on a deep dive into XG actually, because it does sound quite interesting. But Stephen Kenny said during the week, look, it's not about this campaign, it's about the next campaign. Is that the right approach? Do you think he should be given that time? Because today or yesterday, I beg your pardon, and I only saw the headlines now because, look, I have a day job, so I don't get to dive into all the articles. But basically, Jonathan Hill, the CEO of the FAI, said, well, we'll talk at the end of the campaign about Stephen's contract and Stephen's future. But do you think Stephen is taking the right approach here, even if it means, and I'll use the word sacrificing results in this campaign, but you sometimes you do have to throw guys in and form your team and develop things, and you take a bit of pain before you get the pleasure?
Yeah, well, look, firstly, I think there's a lot of criticism of Stephen because he's honest, and people don't really like hearing that. There's also, it seems to me, that there's a cohort of people, particularly the former players or whatever, who didn't really know him and don't really have a viewpoint of his ability, couldn't put into perspective what he achieved in Europe with Dundalk, with Derry previously. Just don't really get it, don't understand it. There's also a sense that they feel possibly insulted by him saying that Ireland could have played better. And maybe they would have been much happier if, when he took over as Ireland manager, that he said nothing, just said, I'm going to try and win our next match, and maybe have his grand plan on in the background and never talk about it and never be honest and never tell the Irish people, look, I think we can be better than what we've done before. You see, the reality is, if you win, you're right, even when you're wrong. And so, unfortunately, he didn't win those games. But a lot of those Nations League games, like, I think we drew 3 and lost 3. And outside of one of those games, I think we actually we should have won 2 of the ones we drew, and we could easily have drawn one of the ones. They were all literally chances missed. And then if you look at Conor Hourihan's miss against Slovakia, like, he probably still has nightmares about it. Like, that miss that's a miss. Like, talk about XG. XG basically is based on what an average footballer in the whole world would do at that exact moment when the ball lands to them in the box, not based on anything else. And Hourihan's XG for that was really, really high. And even still, if he had mishit it, it probably would have rolled to McGoldrick and he would have walked the ball into the net. So, if we had won that game, then the whole length of time for a win wouldn't have gone on. We would have played Northern Ireland in the playoff. Northern Ireland are a very worthy team, and it would have been absolutely fascinating to see how it would have went. But we may well have won. Who knows? So things would have been different. But that's all the ifs, buts, and maybes. I think he is correct to try and bring in the next batch of players. He's been unfortunate that games that should have been won weren't won. If we look at the Luxembourg game, even though we didn't play well, but we should have won the game 1-0, maybe 2-1. Chances, like some of the chances that I've seen missed are illogically bad for me. I just can't understand how the players that missed them, if you know what I mean. Even James Collins, after 20 minutes, if he scores against Luxembourg, the keeper made a great save, we go 1-0 up. Pretty sure we win that match. Against Azerbaijan, he did great work, cuts it back to Conleith, defender does brilliantly. But Conleith scores that, we win that match. When teams score from outside the box, they're very low value opportunities. Like if you look at the Portugal match, Portugal took loads of shots from outside the box, and we were delighted because they were hitting floodlights. And often that's what happens with shots from outside the box. We've been unfortunate in that regard. But still in all, in regards to where the Irish team is, I think we were unfortunate to get Serbia on the way back up. They had a £60 million substitute. Mitrovic is a fabulous striker. Vlahovic, fabulous striker. The Luxembourg striker who scored against us, if he was Irish, he'd be our best striker. So you have to respect the opponent, and too many people in this country, pundits in particular, don't respect the opponent. So add all of that up, I honestly expect us to win 1-0 in Azerbaijan or something narrow like that. I expect us to play well against Qatar. And then we'll go into the Portugal game. And if we have an emotional night like we had against Serbia, we will be backs to the wall for large periods of the game. And we will be like that probably for the next 3 or 4 years until we have until these 20-year-olds are 26, 27. We're probably going to go through this. But rather than use it as a stick to beat the manager with, just accept it. And accept the fact that our greatest ever nights, where we won 1-0 against England in Euro 88, England should have won 5-0 or 5-1. Packie Bonner made save after save. Lineker had miss after miss. When we beat Holland 1-0 in the famous Roy Keane introduced himself to Mark Overmars game, Holland had more chances than you could imagine, and they blew it. When we drew 0-0 in Moscow, and Richard Dunn had the jersey with the number written on it, Given and Dunn were phenomenal. Paul McGrath didn't become Paul McGrath a superhero because he had no challenges in any match in the Charlton era. He did it because time and again he put his body on the line for his country. And that's what these kids and some of the older players are doing, and they deserve respect for it. And I hope, for everybody's sake, not least Stephen Kenny, that the positive performances get results, and then we'll be going to a championship sooner rather than later.
Okay, before I let you go, I just want to ask you about St. Pat's against Sligo Rovers tonight. It has the makings of an intriguing game. Sligo Rovers went on a horrible run, got a point last week against Drogheda, a 0-0 draw away from home. St. Pat's probably would see themselves still as title contenders. So how do you think this one will go? What kind of game do you expect?
I think it should be very good for the simple reason that both teams play lovely football. They're always worth watching because of that. I think what's interesting is I think every team has its blip, right? So often, and it's who survives their blip essentially gets back in a race or gets themselves out of trouble. If you panic when you've had your blip, your season could be ended and you could be fighting relegation before you know it. Sligo have had their blip, they've steadied the ship. Their biggest asset is defensively, they're extremely good. They've only conceded 18 league goals. Ed McGinty, to me, is in the top 2 or 3 goalkeepers in the country, and some of the older ones retiring. He may well be considered the best League of Ireland goalkeeper very soon. He's up there, with, not far off Talbot anyway. So Sligo are really, really good, but they're struggling to score, and that's probably it. Like, they've got 28 goals, Pat's 46 goals. Pats probably have conceded a bit too much for Stephen O'Donnell's liking, but the way they play, they're always likely to give an opponent a chance. But, they've been really great to watch at times this season, played some beautiful football. Obviously Lee Desmond had that terrible injury, but he's always really good to watch the way he's able to build the ball out from the back. Forrester, when he's on song, to be honest with you, Forrester was the player I hoped would be the next Wes Houlihan, and I still have a belief. I hold a candle that one day he'll get the chance to wear the number 10 jersey for Ireland, set up a chance for Adamida and send us to the next European Championships or something. But I think it's going to be a really interesting game, and probably for the league's benefit. Although Sligo fans don't like it, it would be good if Pats won to keep the pressure up on Rovers to keep the title race right to the wire.
Okay, Stephen, thank you very much for joining us. Stephen Finn, of course, the UEFA A-licensed coach, who's part of the Waterford IT research project, and you can follow Stephen's work on futsalfin.wordpress.com. Stephen Finn, thanks very much for joining us on the extratime.com Friday podcast.
Thanks, Oisin.
This is the extratime.com Friday podcast, and we're joined by former Derry footballer and, of course, a coach of Kilcoo, Conleith Gilligan, and also, of course, my BBC Sport NI colleague. Conleith, how are you?
I'm great. Oisin, how's things with yourself?
I'm very, very good. It's a huge weekend. It has the potential to be a great final. Am I right in saying that?
I think you're absolutely right in saying that. Other years, I suppose, even though the finals have been tight and they've went to extra time and they've went to the wire, there was always that expectation going into the game that maybe Dublin would be too strong, maybe Kerry could nip somebody, maybe this could be Mayo's year. But there was always that clear favourite and that definition. Whereas this year, and I think Andy Moran summed it up really well, and I read something he had written in that anybody that can clearly call who will win this game is either mad or lying, because it's just so close.
And how much did we need that change? And I really don't want to sound like I'm disrespecting Dublin here, because I think what they've done is phenomenal. They're a phenomenal bunch of players. Well, they're a bunch of players, if that makes sense, because it wasn't the same players in the main part who did the 6 in a row. But that's a point that I think should be clarified. But it is just good that it is different, isn't it?
It's massively important for the game in that we've got somebody new, and even Kerry getting through to the final would have still been more of the same, because it had been the old traditional forces, getting forward with it. But you were right, Dublin have been phenomenal. The incarnation of 2 or 3 teams that Jim Gavin and Desi was able to do, but it was getting very robotic. It was getting very boring. Even through this year, they got a 4 or 5 point lead, and then the opposition couldn't get the ball off them for 5 minutes. And while that's not Dublin's fault, it just left it a really poor spectacle. And I think with your Tyrones and with your Mayos here in this final, both teams have such a good opportunity to win in All-Ireland that they're going to go for it. There's going to be nobody playing safe, because they don't have time for it. There's no guarantees that either one of these teams will get back to another final in the next 10 years, let alone win it. So from that perspective, it's all the cards on the table and try and get over the line just this one more time.
What kind of game do you think it will be? How do you think the two teams will set up?
Look, I think, like all these games now, matchups are massively important. I think Tyrone held all the aces in the last game, and that the game was disrupted. They knew who they had to mark. They knew where the majority of the scores were coming from, and that a real steely focus on what they were going to do. And I suppose anybody at the game would have seen, like, anytime someone could buy Clifford, it mightn't have been McNamee that had a hand on him. That's something different. Now, when you look at this Mayo team, you don't really know who to mark. You don't really know where the scores are going to come. Like, who do you put on Donaghy? Who do you put on Conroy? The Aidan O'Shea question, where will he start? So there's not as much for Tyrone to grab onto in this one. Whereas Mayo have seen Tyrone now the last day. They've seen where they were strong. Mayo it's probably going to be easier for them to get their matchups right, in that, Lee Keegan, probably, depending on where he plays, looks like he's a match for Matty Donnelly. So Mayo probably will find this easier. They've had a bit more time to watch them. But the caveat is, Kerry had more time for Tyrone, and it actually left them sort of very loose and not hardened to the battle. So, look, I think this game in terms of matchups will be massively important. And whoever gets that closest to being right, will probably get over the line.
Is it a matter of matchups from the start, or is it a matter of whoever can change and adapt quickly during the game? Because Seamie O'Shea was on last Monday's podcast, and he said one thing that's really impressed him about Mayo, and particularly the Mayo management, is that this year when they've needed to, they have reacted and they've made changes, especially in the Connacht final and the All-Ireland semi-final.
Yeah, look, I think probably the way the game goes now with the water breaks, you really only have to get into 15 or 18 or 19 minutes and you can change anyway. So I think that will happen. And you're right. Both teams, when you look at the contribution of the Mayo subs off the bench in Dublin, got them over the line. And then you look at the what Tyrone were able to do off the bench with McShane and the like. So, there's a lot of stuff that can change during the game. And as well as that, both teams are probably so adaptable. You look at your Lee Keegans and your Paddy Durkins, and they could play 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12. But again, Tyrone are exactly the same. Conor Meyler is as comfortable now in the half backs as half forwards, as is Petey Hart. Matty Donnelly would think nothing of going back to 6. So the way modern football is now, those players are playing sort of midfield, centre half back, centre half forward for their clubs. So players are so interchangeable that they can adapt on the pitch, but it's whoever settles to it a wee bit quicker. And you go back to all the other questions about who plays where. And Tyrone have different questions in that. Do they throw McShane in from the start? Then the other question around Mayo is, well, look, they looked so much more fluid whenever Aidan O'Shea wasn't on. Like, is there a chance now that James Horn could decide to throw the dice and say, look, no, Aidan O'Shea, as soon as he comes on for the start, he will be battered and it'll leave it a funny game. If Aidan O'Shea is not there to battle, suddenly Tyrone, who will be expecting him to play, won't have that focus point. So there's so many wee things that you just couldn't put your hand on your heart and say, he'll definitely play or he definitely won't play. And that's what makes this game just so intriguing, in that whenever Tyrone got Clifford off the field, suddenly they went man to man. They weren't getting a +1 defender back from their midfield, their half back line or Michael O'Neill, and they looked more fluid. Now, Kerry came back at them, but for a wee period, Tyrone just played with a wee bit more abandonment. And now you just don't know how that'll play out for the final.
You do get the feeling that Mayo won't, and I'm trying to pick the right words here, they won't fall for what Kerry did. Kerry, people said after the game, their game plan was limited. They were very reliant on Clifford. They didn't make the right decisions. Whereas Mayo, you get the feeling, won't suffer any of that kind of stuff.
No, and Mayo probably are more adept to that type of battle. And historically, over the last 3 or 4 years, Mayo have been very happy to go to Omagh for a league game and come out of it with victories where Tyrone have struggled with them. So they'll have played Tyrone often enough that they'll know where they're at. Tyrone's intensity the last day, the adversity of the COVID situation, the wee bit of sort of negative publicity they were getting, and the one thing that Tyrone teams do is they revel in that adversity. And they got that siege mentality going, and they had that. So how do they get that again for a final? And then it's funny because Mayo have the same issue in that they beat Dublin, the adulation, they got all the plaudits for that. But they've had a month now with nothing. So it's going to be very hard to see where both of these teams get their edge, albeit it's an All-Ireland final. They shouldn't need an edge, people are going to say. But everybody needs to just pin something to it. And from that perspective, I'm just wondering who is the advantage. You look at the management teams, Horn has probably got more experience of the big day of an All-Ireland final. But Fergal Logan's played an All-Ireland final and lost. Brendan Durr's played in All-Ireland finals and won. So that probably balances itself out. And there's just so many permutations. And if you look at those Mayo players, they've went to so many finals now, and so many of them have lost finals. But Tyrone, the last time they got that final, Hampshire, McKiernan, McGeary's, they were all very young. The razzmatazz of a final. But they lost it, and they've probably seen now that it was such devastation. They'll want to.
Does it make a difference to them? Does it make a difference to those Tyrone players who were there in 2018 when they lost to Dublin, that they got to the final and they kind of didn't throw a punch, especially in the second half? They never looked like they were going to win, even though people forget they led at one stage. How much of a factor does that play in the mind of these guys, and how much can the management kind of use that?
It's massive, because whenever Tyrone got to the All-Ireland final, you look at Michael McKiernan was 19, I think, at the time. Yeah. Paddy Hampshire was maybe 22.
Because there's actually like a load of them. There's probably 12 or 13 will start tomorrow that were involved in that game and started that game.
Yeah, and look, first All-Ireland final for a while, And things in Tyrone went absolutely bonkers. Curbs, painted, bunting, cures, the level of activity of things that were happening around clubs was just massive. And it's very hard for young players not to get drawn into the fact that they're getting new suits to go to Dublin. There's more gear. There's all the fluffy things around a final. For example, I was talking to Michael McKernan on Monday, and I was just chatting to him generally. He said, his head's tortured, people looking tickets, but look, he just give his dad all that stuff. He's not talking to anybody on the phone. I would imagine in 2018, he was at university, he was a student at Jordanstown. Michael McKernan's heart would have been broke with his friends looking tickets, and that gets into your head. Tyrone won't have any of that this year, so Tyrone will be a much better place. They've lost, and you have to lose a final sometimes. You'll be very lucky if you get to your first final and win. Normally it takes 1 or 2 goals. Mayo obviously have had that misfortune for a number of times, but Tyrone will be much better prepared for that. And again, and Logan and Dooher, they've 2 managers there that have seen either side of it. And you add in Peter Donnelly and Collie Holmes and them boys. They've all seen different sides of it. Some have lost, some have won. So from that perspective, I think Tyrone will be very, very well prepared for this. And they've had 2 weeks, which is perfect timing. Mayo, the one worry I have is that while they had lovely bit of rest and time to come down from the Dublin win, they won't have had a challenge match. And as Kerry showed against Tyrone, in-house games, no matter how competitive they are, don't match up to really competitive championship ties.
What about Mayo? They could be without Oisin Mullen. Aidan O'Shea, we found out after the Dublin game, was actually in a moon boot in the lead into it. So he was injured going into it. So whether or not he's fully recovered, we don't know. McLaughlin, highly, highly, highly unlikely that he'll play. And obviously Cillian O'Connor has been out all year. How big a loss are those players if they aren't involved? Oisin Mullen might be involved, but how damaging is that?
I think it's very damaging. I think McLaughlin, I'll be very, even though they have sort of given him a clean bill of health and said he might play, I think that's more just to give Tyrone something extra to think about. But I think Bones will probably play. Where he's at and the whole thing, I would imagine he'll be fit enough, but it's that lack of match practice. Aidan O'Shea, and I go back to it, Aidan O'Shea will be the focus point. If he goes to 14, it'll be McNamee on till him. If he goes to 8, I would imagine it'll be probably the likes of Kennedy will maybe pick him up in terms of the physicality. So it's a load of questions. Do you leave Aidan O'Shea as your impact man? But what, like, you're looking at players that aren't there now. Your Keith Higgins. Like, what would Horan not give to have a Keith Higgins knocking about training to try and keep things nice and steady for those younger players? But if somebody said to me at the start of the year, all the players that had retired or that Cillian O'Connor would be injured, but to be in an All-Ireland final, and you'd be saying it's a 50-50 game, you wouldn't have believed it. And I think possibly a lot of those players, while they've had All-Ireland final defeats, it does leave baggage. And I know every player will say to you that, no, there's no baggage, it doesn't matter. It does. In the depths of your own mind, if you've lost 1 or 2 finals, coming down the home stretch, you get edgy. And again, if you go back to Tyrone's final in 18, they'd been to a final full of exuberance. They started off like a train. All of a sudden, they got themselves in front. And then it was, we hadn't really planned for this. What do we do now? Like, these teams now will be planned for, well, what do we do for a point up? What do we do for a point down? If we go to 14 men, what do we do? If we lost a black card, what do we do? There's very little left to chance now. It's so professional. So, yes, while Tyrone are looking probably the advantage there, the youthful exuberance of this Mayo team, in terms of midfield, Ruan O'Connor will definitely have the edge. Durkin, it's going to be very hard to curtail him, whether it'll be Myler or whether Petey Hart pushes up there. It's those things. But I just think the lack of baggage carried in by some of the younger players, O'Donoghue's, McHale's, I think that'll actually stand them in good stead. And for me, if you're looking at it, hard to call, but I just have this feeling that it could be in Mayo's time.
You're not the first person to say that to me. Do Mayo have the dogs of war to stand up to Tyrone, or is that a very cliched but really wrong view of a Tyrone-Mayo clash or of this Tyrone-Mayo clash?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's unfair at all. Like, in the aftermath of the Kerry game, it was sort of well known that, look, Kerry don't particularly want a dogfight. But the one thing that Mayo has showed, especially in them Dublin games, where the pins have been to the collar, just they have went for it and they'll go for it. So I think if it turns into an electrical dogfight, Mayo are there for it. And while we're talking about this game and it could be an absolute cracker, the one worry I would have is that both teams might actually get nervous and clam up, and it could become one of the boreface coming into it, because there's so many permutations. Neither team at the start of the year thought that they were going to have to play each other to win an All-Ireland. Like, yeah, we're going to have to beat Dublin. You're going to have to beat Kerry. But most of them teams would have thought of being a final. They've done it in semi-finals. So both teams, normally when a team comes into final, Oisin, they've had to play a big semi-final. The other teams just snuck through playing poorly, and it's often that team that has the advantage. Yeah. Both of these teams played a final and a semi-final and had to go against the odds to do it. Now all of a sudden they're there. It's very hard to know how they're going to plan for that, because neither of them are the underdog. Neither of them are the favourite. And who does that suit best? And for me, probably suits me a wee bit better.
It's one of those strange situations that if Dublin were playing Kerry and it was a poor final, that's what people would remember. But because it's Tyrone and Mayo, it doesn't matter what kind of game it is. It's still going to be a great story and a great occasion. It doesn't matter who wins it, because either way, Tyrone have obviously had a far shorter wait than Mayo, but it'll still be a great win. So it's kind of got that going for it, doesn't it?
Look, and neither set of supporters, like if it was Kerry supporters expect to win in a certain way. Dublin, I suppose, in more recent years probably didn't care, because it was 4 in a row. It was matching the 5 in a row. There was always something at stake, and they didn't care how they got over the line. These two teams are looking for Mayo, a first in a long time, Tyrone, a first in, I suppose, a generation of players now. So they'll not care. The big question for both counties will be at the final whistle, will it be the Saw Doctors or will it be Philomena Begley blaring out of the loudspeaker? They're the big questions for supporters.
Yeah, I look, I mean, purely it's a musical taste thing.
Oisin, I'd
rather the Saw Doctors.
By the way, Oisin, sorry, do you even know who Philomena Begley is?
Of course I know. Blanket on the Ground.
That's okay, that's because you look at
Blanket on the Ground is a classic. It's a
that's okay, just
Irish
so we know.
History.
The institution in Tyrone that is Philomena Begley, she'll never sell more records than this week with the Tyrone Greatest Hits.
Well, that's very true. Yes, she's a staple of the country music special on the Late Late Show. But no, I was fully aware of who Philomena Begley was long before.
Just want to keep you in check.
Oh, she's a staple of all those Irish country music shows that you hear kind of after 7 o'clock in the evening on all the local radio stations. So no, fully versed on Philomena Begley and all things Tyrone, as you're well aware, Conleith, given that I'm now an Ulster football man, along with yourself.
That is true.
Okay, Conleith, just before I let you go, you think Mayo will win, so we kind of have your answer to the prediction question, but what kind of game do you think it will be?
Yeah, look, I think I'm hoping that it becomes a game where it goes toe-to-toe, because I suppose neither team, like Darren McCurry, to be fair, has probably not 28, not 29 in these 4 games, so he's going to have to be marked. Probably O'Hara will pick him up, and it's whether they can do the job man-to-man. Like looking at it, Mayo haven't won previous finals because they've conceded goals. They've nearly conceded 2 goals in every final they've lost over the last 8 of them. So they can't concede a goal. I would expect, and they normally concede goals early, I would expect Mayo to be very conservative at the start. Tyrone actually, outside of the last game, have only scored 1 goal going into this final. So there hasn't been much in it. I think it'll be an edgier start. I think both teams will want to get into the water break, maybe get into half time. I think it could be a poor first half, but I think once it comes down the straight, I think it'll be hammer and tongue, toe-to-toe. I think it'll be a poor first half, but it'll be a great second half, because both teams will have to throw caution to the wind, because Horan can ill afford to lose another All-Ireland final. Dooher and management team won't want to lose one. So both will have to throw in the kitchen sink at it. And both have really good sub-benches. And in general, I would expect the team to be stronger on both sides, probably finishing, than it started.
It kind of reminds me, as a Waterford man, of a couple of years ago when we played Galway in the All-Ireland final. Both counties, and they didn't say it out loud, but they knew the old powers would be back, or likely to be back, the next year. And of course, now Limerick are one of those old powers, if you know what I mean. So they thought, well, we have to seize the chance. We don't know if we'll be back. It's the same with these two. You just know Dublin and Kerry will bounce back next year. And Tyrone and Mayo may well be back, but you just don't know.
Yeah, well, look, again, they'll be in the mix, but next year, if Tyrone and Mayo want to win the All-Ireland, they're going to have to beat Kerry and Dublin again, well, albeit a semi-final or a final. And even with the system next year, depending on what it'll be, the straight knockout has suited both teams. Whereas in other situations, you'd have been in the last 16 game and you had backdoor games possibly through Ulster, and you would have had Donegal coming again. Like, they'll relish another go at it. So look, this is a massive chance for both teams. That'll be very edgy, but no team is going to want to take a chance on having to come back next year, having lost another final.
Conleith Gilligan, I'll let you back to your listening of Philomena Begley, The Greatest Hits. Thanks for joining us on the extratime.com Friday podcast.
Thanks, Oisin. Pleasure.
I know you love me like I am. Just once more, I'd wish you loved me. On the blanket, on the ground.
This is the extratime.com Friday podcast. It's now time to look ahead to the All-Ireland Senior Camogie final on Sunday between Galway and Cork. We're joined by All-Star with Kilkenny, Elaine Aylward. Elaine, how are you?
Good, Oisin, thanks.
I know you're part of the RTE TV coverage for it and you're looking forward to it. Obviously, you're disappointed your own county aren't there. After the semi-final, in fairness to Brian Dowling, he had no complaint. He just said, you know what, we worked hard. It just didn't happen for us in the semi-final. And Cork, to be fair, grounded out. They found a way to win.
Yeah, probably on the balance of it over the 60 minutes, Cork probably were marginally the better team for the 60 minutes as a whole. But look, Kilkenny, as you said, tried valiantly and, as they had been doing all year, came good at the right time, I thought, in that third quarter and, got the goal at what looked like the right time, looked like they might push on from there. But credit to Cork. I think, I had said to people beforehand I was a bit nervous. Cork had been lying in the long grass for 4 weeks, and when Cork are quiet and when Paddy Murray is quiet, they're plotting, and that they're planning ahead, and that's what it turned out to be. Cork had a really good run into that semi-final. I think the fact that the Cork lady footballers were out of the championship, they had their dual players for 3 full weeks running into the semi-final, solely focused on the Camogie semi-finals. They'd known from earlier in the year when the draw was made, and with all due respect to Waterford down in Dublin, but Cork knew they were going to top that group and knew that they were going to be faced into an All-Ireland semi-final last weekend, and credit to them, they came prepared for it and they brought everything to Kilkenny and thoroughly deserved their win on the day.
I spoke to Paddy Murray after the game and I said, this is the Cork team, but it's not the Cork team of a few years ago. It's a different team to the one that people will, well, I suppose from the Kilkenny side hate, but from maybe the Cork side love. But they are now kind of establishing their own identity, and obviously they don't have the big personalities that they used to, but there are players stepping up now. And they seem to be getting back to the level they were, but with a different group.
Yeah, certainly. Cork had those household names, the Gemma O'Connors, the Aoife Murrays, the Orla Cotters, the Bridge Corkeries, Rena Buckley. Look, you could go on for days naming them. They had all those names, but I think underneath all that, they had these players coming along as well. And I think crucially from a Cork point of view, Paddy probably got an extra year out of a lot of that older group of players, probably got an extra year out of Gemma O'Connor that maybe he mightn't have got Bridge back for that extra year, and I think that all gave those newer players, those younger players coming through a chance, just an extra year to establish themselves. And look, they really have flourished. If you look at the likes of Laura Tracy now at centre back, Hannah Looney, Aisling Thompson, they've all developed hugely. And I think that extra 12 months that maybe they got with a little bit more experience with the likes of Gemma and Bridge around the place. And then you're bringing in younger players, the likes of Laura Hayes and Saoirse McCarthy, you're bringing them into an established setup. And, it's a standard in Cork that everyone wants to be playing at. You're coming into a really, really good setup. And that standard has been set by the players that have gone before them. So, the foundation is laid there for that. And that allows the younger players then coming through to flourish. And as you said, they've really thrived on that. And none more so than when they get to Croke Park. That's when the Cork team, I think, really starts to flourish. Now,
Paddy Murray, the manager, said to me after the game, the semi-final, he said, well, look, sure, we'll turn up for the game, but everyone has Galway already winning it. He's playing up the whole underdog tag. But is it fair to say that Galway are the favourites for this final?
Yeah, it wouldn't be like Paddy to play up the opposition or to have an old trick or two.
Not a bit.
But I don't know. To my mind, I think, Cork are coming into it with real momentum. They've beaten the All-Ireland champions in the semi-final. They've gotten to Croke Park. Paddy has openly said he loves playing in Croke Park. He prefers travelling to play semi-finals and finals. So no fear of Croke Park. They hold no baggage there. And as you said, Paddy's going to be beating the drum that they're the underdogs, none more so than he was coming in against Kilkenny. And look, we saw what they did to Kilkenny. From a Galway point of view, I suppose got over their semi-final. Look, semi-finals are there to be won, and that's what they did, but probably didn't bring that complete performance that maybe they would have been looking for, and left Tip in that game. And from a Galway point of view, probably looking back on it, you'd be a little bit concerned about the amount of goal opportunities that Tip did create in that second half, and it's something certainly Colin Murray and his management team would have looked at, I'm sure, in the last 2 weeks. But look, Galway carry a small little bit of baggage, I think, into Croke Park as well. The last 2 national finals they've been in there, they've been beaten by Kilkenny in the league final in June this year and Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final last year. So a little bit of pressure, maybe more so on Galway coming into it. And as you said, will be tipped as favourites in a lot of people's books, but maybe that brings its own little bit of pressure that Cork just won't have on their back.
What difference does it make to Cork, the fact that they won't know until maybe later on tonight if Orla Cronin will be available? And it's a weird one. Even if she is available, they'll still have that disadvantage of not knowing until very late. So what does that do to Cork regards preparation for this game?
Yeah, it's always the danger, I think, when you have an appeals case like this that's rolling on, that that it takes some of the focus off within the group, and that all the focus turns to the appeals and the will she and the won't she's. Look, I think Cork would probably prepare both ways. They'll probably prepare as if Orla is not playing, and look, they've picked their team without her on it, obviously, and Linda Collins is in, and I think that's the way they have to prepare. Well and good then if the appeal is overturned later and Orla is available to them. Look, what an ace to be able to put out your sleeve, I suppose, at the 11th hour. And the advantage, I suppose, is not knowing until the 11th hour. That's the disadvantage, I should say, is not knowing until the 11th hour. Look, I think they'll prepare both ways. If Orla is available, you'll probably see them revert very much to form, to the way they've played throughout the year. Obviously, if Orla is not there, she's such a key player for them. Tracks back so well and then transitions so well up to the forwards and gets up in support of her forward teammates up there. So, as I said, she'll be a huge loss if she's not there for them. You just hope from a Cork point of view that they've been able to focus on the game, focus on Galway and focus on their own performance, and maybe not let a sideshow like an appeals process take over any of the focus for the last 2 weeks.
Elaine, I find it lovely that after all of these years, you still believe a Paddy Murray team when it's named. You still think that's how they're going to line out. There's occasionally a surprise from Paddy for those for those who don't know, and it might change between now and the game. Who's going to win this game and why, in your opinion?
Look, I've tossed and turned since the 2 semi-finals about it. Coming out of the semi-finals, I thought Cork just gave a complete performance. I mean, around the middle of the field, Aisling Thompson, Hannah Looney and Chloe Sigerson linking up time and time again, and they're a strong physical presence in the middle of the field. I think Cork, having Hannah Looney, Libby Coppinger and Maeve Cahalane free from football for the last 3 weeks, really showed in that semi-final. I thought Hannah Looney probably had her best hour in a Cork jersey that I've seen in a long time. Maeve Cahalane and Libby Coppinger were outstanding in the full back line and really, really tight defence that held the Kilkenny forwards. Looking at it from a Galway point of view, I suppose, as I said, I don't think they put in that complete performance, and maybe it's there bubbling under the surface. I think they'll need to have it. I think they'll need every single one of their players on the field, and probably the subs that they introduce, to have a better game than they had in the semi-final. Galway probably have a stronger panel, but just looking across the board, I think Cork, with the momentum that's behind them, as I said, some of their key players focusing solely on Camogie now for the last couple of weeks, and they will look at the chances that Tipperary didn't put away in that semi-final, and they'll feel that if they get half those chances, that they'll make them count. And we just think on the balance of things, Cork, Paddy Murray, when he gets to Croke Park, I think there's just something a little bit unbeatable about Cork when they get there, and for that reason I think they might just shade it, but by the minimum.
Okay, Elaine Aylward, formerly of Kilkenny, thank you very much for joining us on the extratime.com podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing you as part of the RTE coverage of the senior final on Sunday. Of course, there's 2 other games taking place. It's a triple header of matches. In the Premier Junior final, it's Wexford against Armagh, and in the intermediate match, it's Antrim against Kilkenny. Elaine, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Oisin.
This is the extratime.com Friday podcast, and we're delighted to be joined now by EBS ambassadors, Olympians, and Ireland's history-making siblings, Aidan and Michaela Walsh, along with their dad and longtime boxing volunteer, Damien Walsh, following the launch of the 2021 Federation of Irish Sport Volunteers in Sport Awards, supported by EBS. The awards will see EBS and the Federation of Irish Sport hero the work of volunteers from around the country who go above and beyond every day to ensure that sport and physical activity takes place in Ireland. EBS is calling on the Irish public to nominate a volunteer in their sport who they would like to see recognised at the 2021 Volunteers in Sport Awards. To nominate an everyday hero and to be in with a chance of winning €1,000 for your local sports club, simply visit www.volunteersinsport.ie. Nominations can be made by a club, individual or sporting body and are open from September 7th. So that's last Tuesday, 2021, obviously, to October 17th, 2021. Aidan, Damien and Michaela, how are you all?
Great, how are you?
Great spirits.
I'm very good. I was just saying to you before the call, I hope you're okay with the fact that you make every other family feel like an utter bunch of losers, considering what you all have achieved this year and of course the many years before it.
Yeah.
Sure. No, it's great obviously to be a family affair. Like obviously it's something that we started together, like, and obviously doing your family is a lot better obviously than people who don't maybe know doing it. So we've started together and hopefully we'll finish it together.
Damien, you started Aidan and Michaela on the road to boxing. When you started that, I presume it wasn't with Olympics in mind. It wasn't with Commonwealth gold and medals in mind. It was just to get the kids involved in sport, I presume.
But basically just like any father, any volunteer, going out there to see kids, do their excel, do the best that they can for themselves. I've always had that from my own parents that for any child go out there and let them believe that they could be the best of whatever they go out to do or choose to do. But Aidan and Michaela and my other daughter, we were all involved in music long before the sport. Aidan was mandolin, Michaela was a guitar, and the other daughter was a violin. And then proceeded from that point on into sport, badminton, ice skating, hip hop, dancing, judo, football. Maybe missed a few out there in between. But I've always encouraged the kids basically to be active, mentally and physically. Music for the obviously the mental and the sport for the physical, and just to have a good childhood. But as I said before, sport can change lives, and that was my dream. When they were coming up, I had always something deep in my bones that they were going to be good. What I was good at, I didn't really know. But I just had always this feeling inside me that these kids are going to be good. What it was, couldn't tell you.
And how did you handle that as a parent? Did you encourage them and put a nice kind of pressure on, or did you just leave them off and were they ambitious enough to go and do it themselves?
I led by example. Basically, it's like anything, kids subconsciously pick up a lot of stuff in their early years, and basically, to see me being, as most parents, of all parents, getting up and going out and doing a day's work and coming home and having a good relationship with my wife and having a good family environment, and I was always taking them to the park, and I was fortunate enough to have a caravan up on the north coast in Conleith, and when the site was open for 6 months of the year, that would be from St. Patrick's Day right up to Halloween. I would have took them down to the caravan regularly at the weekend. So I was always encouraged to I would always have been encouraged by my own parents to carry on doing as what we did with you. I grew up obviously in the 70s when the Troubles and all were on. So my dad and mum's goal was to get us away and get us up to the country. And I just carried on likewise. But I had just something different from my parents, and that difference was I was always like a little sports enthusiast. I boxed from a young age as a child myself at St. Agnes's Boxing Club in the Falls Road, and from 12, 13, which obviously my father encouraged me to get into that. So when the likes of my own children came along, I was still there. I was still down at the gym, still training, and I invited Aidan down at the age of 7, tender age of 7-year-old. Michaela latched on immediately. She said, right, can I go? And female boxing back then was alien. It really was. And it was as far off the radar as it could be. So I went to my head coach and asked him, could I bring my daughter down? He says, certainly. Me and him have been lifelong friends. So he says, absolutely, bring Michaela down. And when Michaela came in through the doors of St. Agnes's, it was like a fish to water, she took to it. And the two of them just excelled from that point on. And obviously, at the moment, we're still training there at Monkstown Boxing Club at the moment, and nothing's really changed. The same sort of sort of emotions and all's there, and the same sort of structures are still in place. And that structure basically is encourage your kids as much as you can to get in and get outside, get a good outdoor activities. And boxing can be outdoor as well, because you're running, you're doing the track. You know, you can go out and do your swimming. There's a lot of other things. You're not always just in a gym. You know, you can go to the park and do your park runs. You can go up the mountains. You can go down and do a bit of training down at the beach, down at Carnlough. So, yeah, everything's just paid off.
And Carnlough is a beautiful part of the world. Michaela, you and Aidan kind of, you come as a pair, really, and you work as a pair. And is it fair to say that you each wouldn't have had the success that you've had so far and will go on to have without each other?
100%. Even I've been to tournaments before without Aidan, and obviously on the lead up to that, I was training with Aidan. So his success is my success, and vice versa. We've been with each other from the very start of our careers. Not only in boxing, but other sports. We've done a lot of other sports together. We've helped push each other on a lot. So I'd say my success is down to Aidan as well, for always helping, pushing me, and even though he's younger, always someone to look up to and having a good role model there. So and vice versa, I know I've done that for Aidan. So it's just always brilliant to have the support of your brother. You know, he's been with me every step of the way, and obviously my dad as well. He's been with me every step of the way, and the rest of my family. So having that support from home is amazing. You know, going your way for so long sometimes at these tournaments. So just to have that family support there is a massive thing for me.
And Aidan, I imagine having such a high achieving family who are good, not just at boxing, but a lot of other things as well, it raises the standards for all of you. So you all kind of continually strive to be good at what you do, whatever that is. Okay, it happens to be boxing for you, but I imagine whatever you had chosen, that would have been the case.
Of course, you have that sort of healthy competitiveness, which I think is good and it's important to have that. You're always obviously trying to better yourself, and you're always trying to push on and achieve more than what you've achieved. And it's great to have obviously people around you that see your ability and know that you can achieve more yourself. And sometimes that's what you need yourself. You need someone else who believes in you more than what you believe in yourself. To give you that bit of hope and a bit of inspiration to reach the goal that other people can see that you have. Because I know before, like a lot of other people, like to see your talent before you even realise you've the talent. So I think that's important. And if someone like volunteers, like my dad or some other volunteers, if they're vocal enough and they can see that talent, then it helps you massively, and it helps you build your self-confidence because other people see it in you, and it just takes the time for you to develop it and see it yourself.
Damien, what's your advice to volunteers in sport, whether they have kids or don't, or you know, whether or not they're just kind of getting involved because of their own kids or not? What would be your kind of principal advice to them?
Well, basically, is on layman's terms, get up off the settee. We all do a hard day's work. We all come home. The first place you want to plant yourselves on a settee. And once you get in out of work, it's very, very hard. Once you get down, get the dinner, get the settee, and somebody saying, right, you're ready to go back down to the gym. And for me, it helps me. But I would definitely encourage anybody, get up, get out there, and something. There's no bigger reward when you see a child that can come up to you 10 years from now and say, do you know something? You changed my life. You did something for me, and what was that? And I've seen that so often in sport, even through my childhood club, where I've seen grown men now that are in their late 50s are still best of friends with old coaches, still knocking their door, even through COVID, making sure they're well. How are you keeping? That's because it's somebody give. It's like the old saying, you get back what you give out, and you always get what you deserve. So, I always felt myself that, I was always giving time out. And there's no bigger pleasure than to see that coming back to you, and people making a phone call and people knocking the door, and you could go into a supermarket, go into a shop, people coming up and saying, God, how are you keeping? How are you doing? And I'd be able to ask them, well, how's your child? Listen, you've brought them on massively. Kids with different, any sort of, say, learning difficulty. I'll not name any, but if any kid has a learning, which I have been involved with, and they've come in, the parents coming back to me and saying, you don't realise what you've just done. The kid's come out of a shell. 5 years ago, I couldn't get him to talk, in a crowd. Now he's coming down to the gym and he's socialising with the kids, and You taught them that. So you teach kids to develop a confidence in themselves, that they're able to talk. And that's one of the biggest, in my opinion, that's where kids find the biggest difficulty, because social media is taking up such a lot of time now that kids aren't interacting outside. They're all on their computers, on attaching people. So they're not getting to be creative anymore. So we need to get them out. We need to get them involved. And that's where I come from.
Yeah. Aidan and Michaela, I was actually listening to an interview you gave earlier on. It seems to be the case that you will stay amateur, and Paris 2024 is the aim. There's a long way between now and then. So how do you actually set the goals? Do you look at Commonwealth Games, World Championships? What way do you structure it from here to there?
Well, exactly like you said, there were obviously there's World Championships, Commonwealth Games, European Games. So there's a big event every year in the lead up to the Olympic qualifiers, obviously. So just obviously it's good that obviously the main goal is Paris 2024, but it's all small. There are big tournaments in between. Obviously the Olympics is the biggest, but it's just focusing on them and doing the best you can do in them, obviously in the lead up. But just obviously being at Tokyo and having that experience, you're going in now with full confidence in your ability that, like in the Olympics, you're the elite of the elite. You're walking around the village and you're saying that guy's Olympic champion, that guy's world champion. Like you're in with the best in the world. Like at that period of time, you're the best, one of the best athletes in the world. So obviously it gives you that confidence going forward. But like I said, it's from now to Paris, it's just trying to improve as much as possible and going to these tournaments full of confidence and doing the best that we can do.
Aidan, it must have been tempted to go pro because you're such a great story. If the two of you went pro, you can imagine it being sold, the brother-sister combo and all the usual cliched marketing things. But are you after deciding it and thinking to yourself, right, this is it? Or are you kind of thinking, yeah, it was tempting, but you know what, I'm going to stay as I am?
Of course, like I've only been on the Irish team 2 or 3 years now, and that's including with COVID. So I have a lot more to give in the amateur game. Like I've only really shown a small part of what I think I'm capable of doing. And who knows what the future holds. Obviously, you have to win your nationals and go on to win the World Championships and Commonwealth Games medals, and you have to keep obviously improving to get the aims that you're setting out to do. So for me, I just think of a bit more to give before that I do go professional. But I definitely think down the line I will go professional. Obviously, just seeing obviously people coming out of the Olympics turning professional and seeing what they go on to achieve and what they don't. Also, there's not everyone makes it. Also, so you have to weigh up your options and you have to make a good decision about what's going to benefit you for your future and obviously for your family and making a living. So it's a big decision, obviously, but it's something that you have to obviously take into account that it's going to benefit.
And come here, we could talk to you all day, but I know you're limited for time. You're very popular. Everyone wants to talk to you. So Damien, I'll leave the last question with you. Obviously Michaela and Aidan stand out because they've boxed for Ireland. They've won an Olympic medal. They've won Commonwealth gold. Commonwealth medals. They'll go on and fight in big tournaments and make headlines. But that's only a part of sport. The most important side of sport is kind of the everyday joy to be taken from it. From boxing clubs, GA clubs, soccer clubs, athletics clubs, whatever. And is that to you what sums up what makes sport great? That the joy you take as a volunteer, the joy you see in people who might never box seriously or might never do anything at an elite level, but that they'll take joy and that joy will kind of stay with them for the rest of their lives. Yeah,
well, as I said before, as long as they're enjoying it, that's the key. They have to enjoy what they're doing. They're not being forced out to go into the sport or to do it. They have to enjoy that, and I get to enjoy watching them and enjoying it as well. So for me, it from a personal perspective, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world, and I know that there are not too many people really could sit back and say that, because when you actually experience, you can watch things on TV and watch movies and you think, but when you're actually in the flesh and you see it happening in real time in real life. It's one of the greatest feelings that I'll ever probably experience in my lifetime. But it's just a case of just enjoy the moment, enjoy your time. And like I said before, don't be dwelling on past. And, the old saying goes, if you dwell, you be unwell. Just enjoy the moment, enjoy the time. So I definitely encourage the kids just to keep doing what they're doing and keep it healthy, keep active, and just always keep a positive attitude to life and just keep yourself looking forward.
One last one. Michaela, how good were you at the music? Could you have been the chorus without Jim, obviously?
Don't know about that. Maybe Aidan on the mandolin, maybe.
And do you still play? Is it a nice distraction? Is it, is it a good kind of, I'll use the word hobby to have, maybe that's the wrong word, but is it good to have?
Oh, well, we haven't played a few years, like obviously when we were younger and stuff, we knew different wee tunes and stuff, but it's something obviously we would love to pick up again and obviously learn, as you say, because outside the boxing you need small hobbies to keep you occupied while the boxing's maybe off at the time, like now the training's not as intense. So, but no, it's great to have things. It's great to have options to do stuff like that.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, look, EBS ambassadors, Olympians and Ireland's history-making siblings, Aidan and Michaela Walsh, alongside their dad and longtime boxing volunteer, Damien Walsh. Thanks for joining us upon the launch of the 2021 Federation of Irish Sport Volunteers in Sports Awards. You can find out more by going to volunteerinsport.ie. Nominations can be made from right now. They started during the week. The thing opened during the week. And you can make those nominations up until October 17th, 2021. Aidan, Damien, Michaela, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you.
That's it for Friday. We're back on Monday with a look back on a busy League of Ireland weekend, the Premier League, our usual Irish in the UK roundup with Tom O'Connor, the All-Ireland Camogie final, and of course, we'll know where Sam Maguire will reside for the next 12 months, unless, of course, Mayo and Tyrone play out a draw. And it is possible that it will go to a replay up to the semi-final. It has to end on the day. But that's not the case for the All-Ireland final. This cannot go to penalties. It will have to be replayed. Given the twists and turns we've already had this year, that could very well be the case. We'll talk to you Monday. Take care. Have a good weekend.